So welcome to our first tutorial on introduction to data analysis. So in this tutorial we are going to cover how to use Python for data analysis. And for this specific tutorial we are going to cover the basic things about Python, which include variables and what variables are, how to declare variables and how to use them. We are also going to cover Python data types, including the common data types like integer, string, boolean, list, tuples, and classes. And then finally, we are going to cover functions in Python and classes. Okay, so let me just advise you that this tutorial, we are not going to go totally in depth on things like data type. That is going to go into its own specific tutorial. But we are going to cover the basics of all of this so that you will know what they are and where to use them in your data analysis journey. Now, like I have mentioned in our previous videos or in our previous classes, you can use Python for a whole lot of stuff. You can use Python for programming, building of software. You can also use Python for automations. Some of the AI products that we have today are built using Python. Example, consuming or creating large language models like ChatGPT, cloud AIs, and all of those stuff. There are a lot of places where Pythons are used across this ecosystem. But for this particular course and for this particular video, we are going to focus exclusively on how to use Python for data analysis, which is another section where Python has a lot of uses. In fact, there are other tools for data analysis, but Python is one of the most widely tools that people use every day for performing data analysis. And I think in our subsequent videos, you are going to learn how to do all of those things clearly. But like I said, for this particular video, we are simply going to focus on how to use Python for data analysis. So assuming you have all your tools already downloaded, for example, you have your Jupyter notebook or your Jupyter lab, which is going to be where we perform most of our programming. This is the time where you launch it. So if you have it installed, you just have to open your terminal and go to the Anaconda prompt, which is where you will launch a whole lot of your stuff. So I will just go to my Anaconda prompt right now. You might not be seeing it on the screen, but you just open it from your window and then you type Jupyter Lab. So we are going to type Jupyter Lab right now into the prompt. This will allow us to launch our Jupyter notebook, our Jupyter Lab, which is where we are going to do a whole lot of our programming. So I'm going to use Jupyter Lab, which is like advanced version of Jupyter notebook. So that will open right now. So let me launch it and see. So that will take a few seconds. So while we are waiting for that to load, we'll go over some of the things that we mentioned previously. So variables are like a position where information are stored in programming or in every programming language. So variables are used across different programming language. So even if you're studying something like JavaScript or you're studying something like Java, C Sharp, and every other stuff, you definitely come across something called variables. So you are going to see when our notebook opens how to use variables and where it will become really, really handful in your programming journey. Okay, so we are still waiting for our Jupyter notebook to open, of course, and these are successfully launched right now. So once your Jupyter notebook opens, it's going to show up in your browser, just like the way it's launching right now in my browser. And you can see it has opened up and that's completely open where I was doing some activity from our last class. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to close these windows that it has opened and I'm going to open a new window. So if this is your first time of using Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Notebook, you don't have to completely worried as the entire interface is very, very common or very, very straightforward for you to use. So to open another notebook or to open another lab for your activity, you just come to this file section and click on file and then go to new and then you will launch notebook. Let me repeat that again. Come to this section where you will see file at the top left hand corner of the screen. So click on file. This will open this drop down for you and you click on new and then from there you can click on notebook. Okay, so now you have a new environment. Now they will ask you to select a canal. Now you can now simply like which environment are you going to use to run this particular notebook. So in a subsequent video, I'm going to cover what is environment and everything. But for now, I will simply click on this Python conda environment space. Okay, so if I have a other environment, if I click on this, I'm going to see other environment that will open up for me. But for now, I'm just simply going to click this one and then click on select, right? So I've selected an environment where our program is going to launch. The next thing I will do right now is to give this our particular notebook a title. So as you can see, it's called untitled 4. So I'm going to click on that particular place, or I'm going to simply right click here and I'll see a whole lot of stuff right here. So let's look for how to completely, rename this so that it will be better for all of us. So how do we do that right now? So if you go to file again and scroll down, you'll see rename notebook. So if you come here, you can rename your notebook and call it whatever you are going to say, call it. So for this one, I'm going to call it lesson 1 because this is our first lesson on Python for data science. So I'm going to call it lesson 1 and then I'm going to rename it. Good. So like I mentioned, the first thing we are going to cover is something called variables. So I'm going to write variables here. Now, variables in Python are simply in-memory locations where you store information, okay, so that you can use them subsequently. Now, if you have a phone and there are a lot of images on your phone, there are a lot of pictures, there are a lot of music on your phone, all of those informations that are on your phone are stored at a specific place. So you can create a folder where you store all your images, create another folder where you store your phone, your music, create another folder where you store all your videos. The reason why you do all of this is so that whenever you're looking for those particular files, if you're looking for a particular image, you simply go to the image folder and you will find that particular image in that position. If you want to look for a particular music, you simply go to the music folder and then you can search for your music in that particular place. There are also documents that, or there are also softwares that if you use and you type in the name of the image, the name of the video, or the name of the music, it will search for that particular material and then bring it out for you. The reason why this is possible is because your phone also store information in specific memory locations. That is why you see some phone they have like 250 memory MB or gigabyte or so. All of those are memory locations where information can be stored in your system. So in programming rather, we need a particular way to store information so that whenever we need that particular information, we will need to come back and just call the name of that particular locations and then we'll get that information. In Python or in programming in general, we call those things variables. So let me give you an example right now. So let's say I want to store the number 5 in a particular location. So I can simply write this 5, but what if I want to use that 5 subsequently in our next section? How am I going to reference to that 5? So let's go to let's say we go to a very long location here and I want to use this particular 5 that I declare in this particular place. There will be no way for me to use that 5 except by writing a different 5. The reason is because I did not give a name to this particular 5. I did not give a name to the location of this particular 5. So what I will have to do right now is to declare another 5 which should consume memory again. So the best thing to do at this particular point was to give a name to this particular 5, and that is what variables are, and that is what variables actually allow us to do. So what I can come to do in this place is to say first number. So I can call this first number here, and I will assign it the value of 5, right? So I'll run this. So anywhere I go in our maybe our software or our notebook, I can simply reference this number 5 again without having to declare a new value of 5. So I can do something like first number plus 3. So because first number is already declared here as 5, the value of this particular memory location is 5. When I add it to 3, it should give us the value of 8. So if I'm correct, if I click on run now, you should see that on our screen I have 8. So anytime I need to use 5 right now, I don't have to declare a new value of 5 anymore, except I needed to do that. Okay, except it's entirely needed for me to do that. But in this particular aspect, I can simply just call first number and always reference the number of 5. So you can see the value, the importance of variables that allow us to like declare numbers, okay, or declare value, whatever we want to do. For example, I can also say first name. I can say first name, and then I will say first name is equals to Samuel. First name is equals to Samuel. So wherever I call first name or in our system right now, it's always going to reference somewhere for us. Now, if this is your first time, your entire first time in programming, you will ask a very important question. Why is it that I wrap somewhere with a quotation mark, with two quotation mark, or within two quotation mark? Why in the 5 I did not wrap it in two quotation mark? We are going to talk about that in our data type, okay, when we talk about Python data type. But for now, let me just give you a simple explanation. The reason is because while I was declaring 5, 5 was something called an integer, or it can be a double, it can be a float. Okay, so whenever you're declaring each of these type of data, you don't need to wrap them in a quotation mark. But if you're declaring something like um, a string, which is this name, which is like a text. A string is really like a group of text and so on. You need to put them in the quotation mark. Okay, that is just the way the programming language are able to interpret whatever you're doing. So every form of every types of data in Python and in every other programming language have a way that you need to declare their type so that the system will entirely understand the type of stuff you're running. So for example, if I remove this quotation mark here, so it's not going to be recognized as maybe anything. As you can see right here, there is an error, okay, and the error is name somewhere is not what defined, because I have not defined what this particular stuff is. Okay, they are assuming that this is another variable and I'm calling it without actually defining it. Okay, so next, the correct way to do this is to possibly wrap that particular name in a string to show them that it is not a variable but actually a value that I'm actually declaring. So if I do that right now, there is no error. But if I call first name right now, if I call first name right now and then I run this cell, I'm going to say Samuel, because the value of first name has been stored as Samuel. Okay, so now across every part of our system, I can now declare, or I can now use these two variables called first name, which is equals to 5, and I mean first number, which is equals to 5, and first name, which is equals to Samuel. Now let's do something truly programming or something truly programmatic now to see how we can use variables in performing everyday programming or everyday calculation. So let's say I'll declare my age. So I will say is my age is somewhere, or my age is okay, I'm going to say age is equals to 27. So I'm going to declare a variable called age and I'll say 27, and I'll run that cell, and then I'm going to declare my last name. I will say my last name is Kufri. So I've declared my first name here as Samuel, I've declared my age as 27, and I've declared my last name as Kufri. So how am I going to use? I want to use all of these things to see how we can construct like a complete sentence. Okay, so I will play this, and then inside this particular cell, I'm going to say my first name is, okay. So I will use this two bracket, and I will say my first name is first name. So my first name is first name. So I'm going to say my first name is first name, and my last name is last name. I'm going to put this also in brackets. So my last name is going to be last name, and my age, and my age is age. Okay, so this is going to be the last one. Now before I run this, I'm going to wrap this in quotation mark. So I'm going to wrap this here and I'm going to go to the end. But before doing that, I'm going to start this with an F and then I'll wrap this. Now, the reason why I do this is because we have to look for a way of making sure that plain string and actual variable names work together. In Python, we call this F format string literal. So you can just call it string literal, or but this is F formatted. There are a lot of ways to like do string literal, making sure that an actual variable exists together with a string. But one of the most common way of doing this is called using the F string. So for ease of usage, I'm going to say statement. I'm going to define all of this and assign them to a variable called statement, right? So my statement will be, okay, correctly, let's call this my statement, right? Okay, so we've written the statement we want to write. So my first name is first name, and my last name is last name, and my age is age. So what I'm going to do right now is to add a quotation or to wrap everything in a quotation mark. The reason why I'm doing this is because we are doing something called string literal. We are combining both a plain string with a variable name, with different variable name in this particular circumstance. So we need to look for a way for like us to make that particular stuff to work, because if we run it the way it is right now, it's going to throw an error. So in Python, there are several ways to do that. One of the ways which is very common among programmers using Python is something called F formatted string literal. So you can either call it string literal, but for this particular one, we are using something called F formatted, which is a type of string literal. So I'm going to wrap this with F, just an F symbol, and that is all. So after doing that, I'm going to give it a title. So I'm simply going to say my statement, so that I can use this statement anytime I want to use it anytime across the entire screen. So I'm going to call this my statement. Okay, so my statement is going to be, my name is my first name and my last name is last name and my age is age. So I'm going to run this particular cell right now. So anytime I run my statement right now, anytime I call my statement, I can simply just run this and I'll say my first name is Samuel. As you can see, it has successfully replaced all the variables with the actual value of that variable. So when it was running this particular system, what happens is that when it was running this particular system, it saw a variable called first name, and then it searched the entire system and say what is the value of first name. And then it comes to this list and realize that the value of first name is Samuel. And then it encounter another one called last name, and then come across and say what is the value of last name, and he saw 20 Kufri. And then the next last one, it was age, and then he come across it and say what is the value of age, and realize it was 27, right? So if at any point he didn't find the value of any variables that was called in that particular statement, it would have thrown an error. Okay, so as you can see right now, we've successfully done that, and therefore anytime we call my statement, we are going to have this particular statement at point. So that is like the basics of variables. Like I mentioned previously, variables are used specifically to, you know, stored information in our system, so that you don't have to repeatedly write a specific information. So in the context of data science, let's say you have a particular number which should be like your mean, okay? And in that your mean, you're going to like use that particular value across different or different parts of your data analysis. Instead of you to continually look let's say redefine that particular variables, you can store them in a particular place. A very perfect example is like the value of pi. So if we are doing a calculation and we want to use the value of pi, so we can say pi is equals to 3.47, right? I think this is like the common value of pi, right? So there are a few things you can do right now. You can either, whenever you want to use the value of pi, you call 3.47, or you can store it in a particular variable called pi. so that whenever you want to use that particular stuff, whenever you want to use the value of pi, you simply just call this particular place. So let's continue and let me show you a very good example. Let's say the first instance is you want to divide 300 by the value of pi. So the first thing you could do is 300 divided by 3.47, right? And that will give you the value of pi. So if you run this, that will give you the value of pi. And then possibly you want to divide 400 by the value of pi, and you just do 400 divided by 3.47, right? And you do this again, and it gives you the particular value. But this is very simple because the value of pi is 3.47. But what if you're looking for, like, you're using a specific number that you cannot recall every time? It is not really responsible to keep calling that particular value anytime you need to use it, okay? Because at a particular point, you might make a mistake and you just say 3.41, and that will give you an incorrect value. The most reasonable thing to do here is to store that value in a particular variables or in a particular memory location, so that whenever you need it, you can simply just call it. So in this context, it's pi. So I can store it in this particular location, and then whenever I need to call the value of pi, I will just say 300 divided by pi, and it will give me my value. Then I can now say 400 divided by pi again, and to now give me my variable, my solution. Now, another benefit of this is that, assuming we made a mistake in the value of pi, okay, so it won't really matter. All you have to do here is to just come here and change it at this one single location. So if pi was 3.50, once we change it in this specific location, we don't need to change it anywhere, as our system will record it. So if we run this now, it will give us the correct value when divided by pi, and then we'll run this, it's also going to give us a specific value when divided by pi. So you can see the importance of using a variable. It allows us to become consistent, minimize error, and store value in our specific memory location. Okay, so in the next video, I'm going to show you how to perform basic calculation using Python. So see you in the next one.